Hi, I'm Ian Messenger with my co-host Lauren Blackford.
Hey there.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Small Business Small Talk powered by Hibu. Today, we're talking with Eric Damm, Hibu's Senior Digital Product Manager, about taking control of your small business's online reputation. Hi, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Ian. Hey, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Sure. No, we're glad you could be here today. So I want to dive right into it. You know, when we say reputation, I think that conjures a lot of different things for people, whether they just, have some association with the word in general, or they're thinking of, oh, well, for my small business, my reputation equals blank. So when we talk about online reputation in the small business sense, what all does that include?
The online reputation, as you said, really is a very loaded term. And when we think of online reputation, we really think of the foundation of your business online. So how is your business listed online? How do people see your business online? What do they see about your business? What do you say about your business? All of that can be wrapped into your online reputation or your online foundation, or really what we like to think of your digital storefront. So we all know you have a physical storefront where people can drive up, see your business, visit your business. In the digital world and in the online world, really your reputation and your foundation is your digital storefront. So when people are looking for your business, what can they see about you? What can they read about you? What information do you provide to them? So we can really break that down and get into a lot of different aspects of what we call your online reputation.
Does that go beyond just a website, Eric?
Absolutely. More and more these days, we're talking about people finding businesses away from the website. Your website is still very much visited by your customers, people looking for your business, but being listed on the likes of Google and Facebook, and I can go forever naming different apps, directories, sites, all these places, there are experiences that people looking for your business will find you and will find information about your business away from your website. More and more, that is where the online experience is being found.
And that's interesting, right? Because I think as a small business owner, it's easy to think, well, I put time and effort into my website, and I expect that when someone's looking for me online, they're typing in my URL, or they're, when they search for my business name, my website is what shows up. And it sounds like it's a lot more than just your website, or in some cases, maybe your website doesn't show up at all. That's not what people see when they're trying to suss out who you are and whether they should give you their business.
Right. Your listings, as we like to say in the world of online management, your listings, as I mentioned before, span a wide variety of places, whether it's apps on your phone. So we all use Google Maps or Waze or different places that you look for businesses. As I mentioned before, the Facebooks and Googles are big ones, but really making sure that you have consistent and accurate information everywhere goes a long way in the world. You really want to own and make sure that you're in complete control and complete knowledge of what is out there about your business. A lot of times you might say, you're open 9 to 5, that you specialize in a certain aspect of your business, but that's not really what's out there. There's a lot of bad data out there. Bad data gets circulated, and the more and more it gets circulated, it can infiltrate different places that you don't realize it is. Owning everything about your business online is a very important aspect to really controlling your reputation and controlling what people see and know about your business.
So is it fair to say that beyond the things that you've created or are aware of, there may be other things that people are encountering as they either look for your business by name, or looking for a roofer, and you happen to fall into that search, that folks may see something that a small business owner isn't aware of, and may be right, wrong, updated, out of date, what have you?
That's exactly right. At Hibu, we do what we call a listing scan to see what's said about your business, all of the different places that you're listed, and how accurate and consistent that information is. In different places, we often find, and business owners often find when we show this to them, that what you alluded to there, Ian, they had no idea that was listed. Oh, that's an old phone number. That's not my address anymore. Or something, even if it's more related to their business. Oh, I don't do power washing anymore. I only do painting now. I used to list power washing out there, and that still says I do it. And that information, like you said, lingers out there. It gets spread out there. And being aware of what's there, making sure accurate, consistent, and up to date are three real bullet points we want to focus on when we talk about your online listings.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, Eric, because if a consumer is searching for a roofer, but they don't do roofing, and it says it out there, and they get a phone call and say, hey, I need a roofer. I'm not a roofer anymore. That's a bad customer experience. So like you said, it's so important for businesses to keep their information online accurate and consistent.
Yeah. And the flip side of that is being proactive when you do something, whether it's, you're changing in the ever-changing world that we're in right now. You're now doing online ordering, or you're now doing curbside pickup or anything like that. You want to proactively push that out there. So yes, your example is perfectly accurate and a very real one where I don't do that anymore. But if you do start to do something, you want that information everywhere. You don't just want that on your website. We mentioned putting that on your Facebook, your Google, everywhere. There are so many sites, whether they're vertical specific sites that only have food options if you're a restaurant, or contractors if you're a contractor. There are so many of those what we call vertical specific sites. We want to make sure that information is everywhere. If you're doing something, you want your customers, you want your potential customers to know that you can do that, or you provide that service, or you're now open till X amount of hours. We need to make sure that information is not only accurate and consistent, but like I said, up to date. You're pushing that information out there, and you're making sure people can find that when they want to know. Somebody wants a 24-hour plumber right now. They want to know that you have 24-hour service. That better be listed everywhere, not just sitting on your website that may or may not get found by that person searching.
Right. And the flip side of that, from a risk perspective, is, with what sounds like so many places that your information may be listed, it only takes someone finding the one that's wrong and, driving to your location and oops, you closed an hour ago, but that listing wasn't updated. That's probably not going to be a repeat customer. That's someone who's only had one negative experience, and they're like, well, I'm never going to that pizza place again. Their hours were wrong.
It's a very dangerous thing. It's like I said, the digital storefront, you wouldn't want somebody pulling up to see a closed sign right there at your front door. You wouldn't want somebody calling your phone to see nobody answering. You wouldn't want somebody calling to ask for a roofer when you're not doing roofing anymore. All of those things are very negative experiences that, like you said, not only affect that particular person, but we all know they have trickle-down effects, right? We talk about, word of mouth and positive experiences being shared with others. The negative ones get shared just as fast and are just as detrimental to your business. So it's a big thing to make sure that your information is accurate and making sure that everybody knows what you want them to know about your business.
So Eric, you brought up word of mouth and positive and negative experiences. Let's talk about how else a business can manage our online reputation based on what other people are saying.
Right. Thanks, Lauren. So aside from what you want to say about your business, which is your listings, what other people say about you, your ratings and reviews is probably the most easy way to understand this one. It is a very important of managing your reputation. It's a very important aspect of managing your reputation. So ratings and reviews, I think at this point, all of us know what ratings and reviews are. I would be very surprised to find somebody that hasn't read a Google review, read a Facebook review, read a review on your website, read a review on Yelp, written a review on Yelp even. We have stats out there. I think that the most recent one I have might be over 90% of people will read reviews before making an online purchasing decision. So making sure that those ratings and reviews about your business, that you're aware of them. So you want to generate reviews. So there's really two aspects of what I think are important in the world of ratings and reviews. One is generating those reviews, making sure that you're getting reviews, making sure those reviews are positive, they're reflective of your business, and they're recent. Right? If your most recent review is 3 years ago, it's not going to hold a whole lot of weight in the world. And then not only generating those reviews, but making sure that you're fully aware of those reviews. You're reading them, you're responding to them, and you're in complete understanding of what people are saying about your business. Those are two major aspects of managing your online reputation in how it relates to ratings and reviews.
Right. You'll often see as a consumer, a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but, you'll look at a listing and see negative reviews. And at least for me, when I don't see a response from the business owner, I kind of scratch my head like, why are they, best case scenario, they're not monitoring the fact that they're getting negative feedback, which doesn't make me think as a consumer that they're changing their ways. If I believe that negative review, or worst case scenario, they're just not interested in trying to address that complaint, which makes me think, well, gosh, if my experience with them goes sideways, like I don't know if I'm going to get any kind of resolution here. Maybe I should look for somebody else.
Yeah, you hit on two big points there, Ian. The first one is when you do have those negative reviews out there, it's scary. It's something that no business owner wants to see, and unfortunately, it's very likely going to happen to every business owner. So when they're out there, handling those negative reviews is very, very important. And Ian, you had mentioned that when you personally see a review that doesn't have a response, it doesn't leave a great taste in your mouth, right? So the person that left that review wasn't very happy, and the person that reading that review is also probably not very happy. So from a business owner standpoint, there's really there's really one thing that you can do there, which is respond to that review. And when you're responding to that negative review, there are some guidelines that you really need to be aware of. First one is don't fight back. You have to resist an urge to tell that person they were wrong, or fight with them, or say you couldn't believe they didn't like your service. But a major thing to keep in mind there is don't fight back. Be respectful, and make sure that when you're responding, that you're responding to something that you're comfortable with everybody reading. So handling that review in a calm manner and trying to address the situation and offer to remedy the situation is definitely a coaching point that we like to talk to our small businesses about. Understand that review, read that review, respond to that review, and offer to remedy the situation.
The old, the customer is always right viewpoint.
That's right, Lauren. That's right.
And it can be something as simple, I imagine, as, rather than, I guess what I'm thinking is if you're aware enough to be responding to negative reviews and thinking, well, I don't want the next consumer to see this, you don't have to get into specifics. And you certainly don't have to get into, no, this person's wrong. I did everything right. It can be as simple as just something along the lines of, I'm sorry to hear your experience with us wasn't what you expected. Please reach out to us privately and we can try to help. And even that to another consumer is like, oh, that's very friendly and professional. And okay, I know I'll have an avenue if, anything were to go wrong with my experience.
That's a perfect response, Ian. And responding to that review is big. And listen, sometimes the customer is right. There are things that you can learn from reading those reviews. If somebody said that, they sat in the corner of your restaurant that was way too loud and you couldn't hear a thing, maybe they're right. Maybe you can make that change and say, wow, the corner of that restaurant is really loud, and then nobody else will have that same experience. So every negative review is not a fighting point, but definitely a learning point for businesses. So the point being that you need to, as a business owner, be aware of those reviews, whether they're valid, whether they're true, whether that person has a good point, a bad point, a positive point, or a negative point. Making sure that you're able to read those reviews and understand those ratings that are coming in from your customers. That is a major, major point of managing your online reputation.
You're listening to Small Business Small Talk, powered by Hibu. Hibu is the country's leading provider of synchronized digital marketing for small businesses, delivering more visibility, more visitors, more leads, and more customers. Visit us today at hibu.com, Hibu, hibu.com.
We're back with Eric Damm talking about taking control of your online reputation. I love that idea of it being a learning opportunity. So is it just as important to respond to the positive reviews?
Yes. Well, I say that with a little bit of a nuance. I wouldn't say it's just as important. it can be very important. It can be very useful. And there's a lot of advantages to responding to positive reviews. I would not say that the only tactic you should take is respond to every negative review and ignore the positive reviews. I do think there is, like you mentioned, there are a lot of merit in responding to positive reviews. One, you get a chance to show that customer and show other customers that you care. When they say they loved your restaurant and you thank them for saying that, they feel better about it. They're not just saying that, you're showing that you took the time and you took the thought to respond to that review, and other people see that. And also, another major aspect of responding to positive reviews is you can use that as free marketing. There's a lot of times where somebody is going to compliment something about your business. Double down on that. If somebody says we had a great experience sitting outside at your restaurant, you can go a step further and say, we're so glad you enjoyed our brand new patio. We worked hard and it just opened in May.
Right.
And now that you're getting free marketing in there, right? That's a place people are reading reviews. People are going on to different sites about your ratings and reviews and reading them. And now not only do they see that you're a 4.8, but you got to sneak in there that you just did a new patio and another customer down the road in your neighborhood liked it. You double down on the positive effect of that review.
Yeah, sure. What's that? The humble brag methodology?
I think that's right. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for positive and negative reviews there. So it's hard to formulate a cut and dry strategy to say I only reply to these, or I reply to 1 out of every X reviews. Businesses can certainly formulate that strategy. That's something that a lot of businesses like to do. That's part of creating your brand voice. If your brand voice is, hey, I'm going to respond to every single review, I'm just going to say thank you and use that person's name, and we're so glad you enjoyed your experience, and that's the strategy you're going to take, that's great. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong strategy, like I said, to say what percentage of reviews need to be responded to. But I think when we talk about managing your reputation and having a brand voice and your online reputation in general, a review response strategy is a big part of that, whatever that may be. And as part of that, I would absolutely encourage business owners to respond to those reviews, especially negative ones, respond to some positive ones, have a consistent voice, have a consistent message you want to convey, and get involved in those ratings and reviews. You could have hundreds of reviews out there, and if you don't want to respond to them or you don't read them, they're not doing your customers near the amount of positive nature that they should have there. So I think reading and responding to reviews, I can't say it enough. It's just a major piece of your online reputation.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I suddenly realized as we're talking about reviews, which is a, incredibly important and multifaceted part of your reputation. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's just one part of your reputation. And we talked about earlier on, your listings, which are kind of the facts that are out there, your hours, your phone number, your address, your website URL. We've talked about reviews, positive and negative, responding to both positive and negative. Is there anything else when we're kind of thinking about that big umbrella of reputation? I mean, those are both kind of, I guess to a degree, passive things. Is there anything that a small business can do proactively to influence their reputation?
Yeah, and that's another good point there. So I think this one ties into a little bit about different points we've made so far, but really getting that information out there in the form of posts. I think that term has probably been heard by most people. Facebook posts have existed for quite some time. Social posting, social marketing, we've all heard those words, but really part of the online reputation, what you're saying there, the proactive messaging, the proactive communication out to your customers can really be accomplished through those posts. So I know that I mentioned your Google profile, Google My Business, GMB as we like to call it. Google now has posts on their profiles as well as Facebook does. And a lot of those posts, they're front and center. They're given prominent placing. Google likes them. Facebook likes them. Your customers like them. And when I say Google and Facebook like them, they help in your placement, which we all know is a major thing we strive for as business owners, making sure that you're found when somebody searches for you. But those posts are not just information to your clients, but they go a long way in helping the placement of your online listing. So those posts that I'm talking about, they can be anything from promoting a new special, a new event, something new at your place of business, a new service that you offer. I know I alluded to this earlier, but in the world of the COVID, if you're doing something differently in response to this, all of that information, instead of just putting it on a bullet point on the bottom of your website, it's going to get a lot more traction. It's going to get a lot more eyeballs when it's a GMB post or it's a Facebook post. So I think really putting that information out there, and I love the word you use, proactively, is going to capture eyeballs. That's the placement. That's really where customers are going to see the information that you want them to see.
You mentioned Facebook and Google, and there's a little bit of an elephant in the room because we've been talking about reviews. A couple of years ago, Facebook changed the way that they do reviews and switched them over to recommendations. Can you talk a little bit about what that has looked like? Because I still see businesses that have, a star rating, but it's recommendations that are yes or no. And I think that can be a little confusing.
Sure. Yes, that is absolutely a bit of confusion and something that we get a lot of questions about with what is Facebook doing with this scoring system? What is a rating score? What is a recommendation? Do I still leave 1 through 5? So all good points that you made there, Lauren, in the question. So Facebook does now have a rating score. So it looks just like your rating. It looks just like the 1 through 5 stars used to. So as a business, hopefully you're in the 5.0, but 4.5, 4.7, it still does look like that rating score that we're used to. But really when a person, whether it be a client or somebody that you've done business with, when they leave you, I want to say a rating, but that's probably not the right term anymore. When they leave a review of your business, they now choose to recommend your business, yes or no. It is a binary scale on Facebook now. There is no 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. It is I recommend this business or I don't recommend this business. Binary, and they can leave a comment as well with that new review. And the score that you mentioned there is really a score that Facebook has formulated based on old ratings if you had them. They didn't throw them out the window. If you worked hard and got your business up to a 4.8 based on all of those old 4 and 5-star ratings, that's really your starting point. So as a business, if you had a 4.8, and then when Facebook switched over to recommendations, you've since then gotten 20 positive recommendations and 0 negative recommendations. Your score may be a 4.9 now.
Right.
We don't have a specific calculation for it. Nobody does. It's not us. It's not you that doesn't have it. Only Facebook has it. It is a score that Facebook puts out there based on the number of recommendations and the ratio of positive and negative, as well as those legacy ratings that used to be out there about your business. And one other thing on the recommendation, I mostly was focusing there on the on-page, what we call the on-page recommendations. Somebody goes to your business profile on Facebook and they say, yes, I recommend this business, hopefully, or no, I don't recommend this business. But there's also off-page recommendations. So as a user of Facebook, if somebody says, I'm looking for a new place to get my haircut in a neighborhood page or on somebody else's page, you can say, I recommend, and then tag the business, Lauren's Salon, and Facebook knows you're tagged as a positive recommendation, even though nobody was on Lauren's Salon's page and recommended it. Those off-page recommendations still count towards your score. So Facebook is really trying to capture the sentiment about your business and how many people recommend your business, and then assign a quote unquote score to you. So managing that recommendation score, that rating score, is really just as important. It's really the same thing to a business owner. It just looks a little different now.
Yeah, and that's not to not to keep going negative, but as you talked about that kind of straight up or down, yay or nay, I recommend, I don't recommend, like, boy, that's kind of cutthroat. That's no wishy-washiness there with, well, they gave them a 3. Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty? Like, no, they said yes or no. That's it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you would see a lot of, on Google or anywhere else, 4 stars, awesome place. I loved my service, but my pizza was a little cold, or it wasn't the best version of that pasta I've ever had. Now they're forcing the hand of those reviewers. Would you recommend it or not? Make your choice. Like you're saying, it is a little cutthroat. But business owners, again, when we're talking about managing a reputation, treat them the same way, whether it's a negative recommendation, a positive recommendation, a 5-star or 1-star. reading it, understanding it, learning from it, responding to it. All of the same bullet points still pertain, whether we're talking about Facebook or Google or TripAdvisor or Yelp. I know we've been focusing a lot on Facebook and Google because they are the biggest players in the game. That is where a lot of reviews are left. That is where a lot of reviews are read. There's no secret about that. But there are tons and tons of smaller review sites, industry-specific review sites, as I mentioned before, where there will be ratings, there will be things said about your business, and reading those is just as important. The volume may not be there that is on Facebook and Google, but if somebody hates your business and they have a lot of bad things to say about it, and that's out there on any site that you didn't know about, that becomes just as important, just as, and potentially more dangerous if you're not seeing that review out there. So
right.
It doesn't change the fact that business owners absolutely must be aware of everything that's said about their business, wherever it's said about their business.
And I think one of the things that's easy to lose sight of when you're getting, whether you're getting positive reviews or negative reviews, it's easy to take those personally to a degree. Why is Google putting up these 2-star reviews, or how come Facebook's letting these people give me a thumbs down, would not recommend? And I think it's important to remember as a small business owner that those platforms are just like you should be thinking about your next customer. They're saying, listen, people who come here and are looking at ratings and reviews are trying to decide whether to give you their business, and we want to give them as much information as we can about whether you're a safe bet or a good choice. Which kind of takes us full circle to even if you're getting those negative reviews, play the same game that these platforms are. If they're talking to your next consumer, you can talk to your next consumer too. As long as you're responding and putting things in context and putting positive things out there, it can be very easy for that next consumer to look at a negative review and go, that guy sounds like he was just fired up about something, because everything else here looks great. That was just one disgruntled person having a bad day.
That's a very good point, Ian. And one of the most common questions I hear all the time, and a very good question from business owners is, what am I going to do about that negative review? Can I delete it? Unfortunately, no. We can't delete anything that's out there on Facebook or Google unless it violates certain guidelines, and that's a slightly different conversation. But if somebody had a bad experience or they chose to write that their experience was bad, whether you agree or not, there really isn't anything we can do in terms of deleting that review. So the coaching and the guideline that we like to provide, and I think this is exactly what you were mentioning there, Ian, is bury that review. And I say that in a nice way, because since we can't delete it, what we can do is push it down the page. So if you're out there asking for reviews and you have 5 other people that had a great experience to that one negative one, that's what we want your page to reflect as well. We want somebody to read 5, 10, 20 positive reviews before they can see that negative one. And exactly as you frame that, if 9 out of 10 or 19 out of 20, it sounds like a survey, 19 out of 20 people had a good positive experience, the next consumer reading that can understand that one person may have had a negative experience.
Right.
So really making sure the best way to handle that, and to sum that thought up, is the best way to handle those negative reviews, aside from responding to it, as we've already, I think, spent plenty of time on, is making sure that we're burying that negative review by getting those positive reviews, asking for positive reviews, generating more reviews to really highlight and reflect on the positive experience that other consumers had.
So Eric, what are some ways that a business owner can ask for reviews from their happy customers to maybe bury those negative reviews, or just increase the positive reviews in their ratings?
Right. That's another very common question is I want to get good reviews. I just don't know how. I don't know how to ask for them. I don't know where to ask for them. I don't know when to ask for them. Before we get into specific tactics, I think the most important thing to say, and it sounds like something we probably learned as kids, is don't be afraid to ask. I think there's a lot of people out there that have great experiences with all sorts of types of businesses. And it's not really human nature to go run home and write about every single one. I don't think we all have that kind of time on our hands to write about every positive review. Nor is it just something that's always front and center in our minds. But the flip side of that thought is, I think when you ask for positive reviews, when a business owner asks for a review or asks for some feedback, even if you want to say it in that term, people are happy to provide it. The old "don't be afraid to ask" it really rings true. So I think that's kind of step number one is, you don't know until you try. You're not going to get a review unless you ask. That's not necessarily true, because I'm sure people will still get them. But really making sure that you're proactively asking for those reviews or asking for feedback is a big one. And that's kind of front and center in terms of the quote unquote strategy for getting more reviews, is don't be afraid to ask. And in terms of tactics, this can vary. People can put links on their websites. People can, you can have links on your bill, your invoice, your thank you card if you send customers thank you cards. There's so many different ways to talk about this depending on the type of business you are and the way that you communicate with your customers. Again, sending bills and invoices is relevant to certain types of businesses, not all. But anytime you communicate with your customer, an email, a newsletter, there's so many touch points that you have with your customer, including would you leave me a review, is never a bad idea.
I like it. And you're right. People don't run to review sites unless they've had an outstanding or a terrible experience. So if you're just pleased and you're asked for a review, you're probably more likely to write that than if you weren't asked in the first place.
That's right. Unfortunately, it tends to be more they run when they have a terrible experience, which is why we need to make sure we're flooding that page with the positive one. So the one person that runs home to write their negative experience isn't ruining it for everybody else. It isn't really dominating your page. There are so many people that have so many positive experiences, and they are willing to promote those local businesses, promote your business. People just, as we said here, they're just not running to do it. But it's a very important aspect of this, because when you ask and when you generate those positive reviews, the effect on your business are enormous. Reviews go so far, people reading them, the search engines, as I've said, they help your placement. They help your website. If you have positive reviews on your website, you're going to get more interactions. If somebody's reading a positive review on your website and then they see a form fill right below that, reading that positive review probably is going to nudge them more in the direction of filling out that form or going with you instead of continuing to shop around for other businesses. So positive reviews, the positive effect that they have on your business really can't be understated. There is more stats. There's so much to be said. Online reviews are the new word of mouth. There's so many things that we can say, and we can spend hours digging up different stats about how important positive reviews really are to your business. So by all means, don't be afraid to ask for them. Do what you can do to generate those positive reviews. You will not be disappointed when you see the implications that has on your business.
Well, you just kind of hit on my next question, which, if we kind of zoom back out to the idea that your online reputation is a culmination of all these different sources and channels and things that people can interact with online. Once you start getting those positive reviews, or you have a plan to ask for those reviews, how and where do you distribute those to make sure that, when someone does go looking for you, whether they land on your website or your Google My Business page, or they go straight to Facebook, or heck, they ask a, voice search assistant in their home or on their phone, what's the best pizza place in town? Where are all the places that you can kind of feature those reviews so that people know that you're a good choice?
Yep. Really good question. And you touched on a few different things that I want to make sure that we address there. One of them, you talked about whether they see it on Facebook or whether they see it on Google or whether they're on Yelp. So part of managing your online reputation, having what we call a strong reputation, is making sure those reviews are balanced. They're everywhere. Having 100 positive reviews on Google and not a single review on Facebook, while that's great, is not really what we would consider the strongest of online reputations, because we know some people may go right to Facebook and they're not going to see a single review. And you don't get a chance to go back and say, but wait, you missed my 100 Google reviews, right? No matter where people are searching, they need to see them. So one of the biggest aspects of having a strong reputation is making sure that your reviews that are out there are balanced. They're everywhere. And we already talked about the fact that we need a high volume of them. We need them to be positive. You can have 100, and if they're all negative, that's not going to do a whole lot of good. So we need to make sure that we have a lot of them. They're in balanced places, and we need to make sure they're recent. So spreading that out is one big aspect of answering that question that you had said there, Ian. And then the other part of featuring those reviews is your own website is, as we talked about, while we said, maybe not the only place that people find your business, they still go to your website. A lot of experiences will still go back there. And we can show those positive reviews on your website. Your website is not just to list your name, address, phone number, and what you do, but featuring those nice reviews is also a major component of something that we like to do for a Hibu website. So as we know, the Hibu websites can integrate very nicely with Hibu reviews as well as Facebook and with Google, and we can feature those reviews. And when clients or potential clients, more likely, are looking at your website, having those reviews on there is going to be a strong performance driver on your website. So seeing that, you're a 5-star business and people on Facebook like you and people on Google like you and people that have given you direct feedback like you, there's a lot to be said. You're really building up, your positive reputation on your own website.
And we've tested that, right? We've measured that, the difference between, websites we've built where there are no reviews and websites where we pull those in and they're kind of part of the feed of content that the ones with reviews tend to do better, right?
Yes, the data absolutely supports that. That's not my personal opinion, or that's not me, hoping that's true. That is absolutely what we see. Conversion, engagement, all the different metrics that we like to measure for a high-performing website, those are increased when we see reviews on your website, and especially when those reviews are positive. We feature what we call an aggregate rating, your score, on top of your website. So if you have 100 reviews from Facebook, Google, and those equal out to be 4.8 stars, and we put that on top of your website, people love to see that. That is going to drive more click-throughs, more engagement, when compared to a website that doesn't have anything, where they're just taking your word for it, as opposed to the 100 people that left you ratings and reviews. Taking other people's word for it absolutely manifests itself in better engagement on your website. Yes.
You're listening to Small Business Small Talk, powered by Hibu. Hibu is the country's leading provider of synchronized digital marketing for small businesses, delivering more visibility, more visitors, more leads, and more customers. Visit us today at hibu.com, Hibu, hibu.com.
We're back with Eric Damm talking about taking control of your online reputation.
And just real quick, Eric, you mentioned balance in reviews across the sites. How does Hibu help with that? Because that's something difficult to manage.
It's very difficult to manage, and thanks, Lauren. So the Hibu Reviews product itself is really working in the back end now to understand what your current review situation looks like. How many reviews do you have on Facebook? How many reviews do you have on Google? When was your most recent review? And really pointing your reviewers to what we like to say, where you need them the most. We always need more reviews. We always need better reviews. There's no such thing as too many. There's no such thing as too high of a review. But what Hibu is trying to do is making sure that we're helping keeping that balance, and we're making sure that that positive review and those recent reviews and those high number of reviews are happening everywhere. So when you ask for a review via Hibu Reviews, we're also, as a secondary step there, making sure that that review is being asked for in the correct place. And like I said, where you need it most. It's a very intelligent feature. It's something that we've recently built. And it's something that should absolutely take all of the guesswork and take the hard work, like you said, for a business owner, take it out of their hands and just let Hibu Reviews take the driver's seat and point reviewers where you need it, which is in turn going to give you that strong, balanced reputation that we're all after.
That's so great. Intelligently putting the reviewers where the business needs the reviews the most. It's amazing.
That's right.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because it kind of speaks to the, I guess the elephant in the room question that I keep going back to is, we've talked in this episode about your Facebook page, your website, Google My Business, TripAdvisor, Yelp, all these different things, and getting reviews and getting your basic information correct, and how that all kind of snowballs into your overall reputation, and then the need to divide that amongst all those different channels for balance. And I can just hear a small business owner going, I believe you. this sounds important, but I got a business to run. Like, how the heck am I supposed to keep up with all this? So, from the perspective of that small business owner who, may be very interested, may think this sounds great, but just has no idea how to scale all of these activities. What's your advice in terms of, how do you get this done?
Yeah, I think you touched on exactly what we want the small business owners to say, right? I believe you. Hibu has a lot of experience in all of these fields, and we touched on a lot of different important aspects of your online reputation. So we talked about listings, and we talked about them being accurate and consistent and up to date. We talked about making sure there's no bad data out there about your business. We talked about making sure you proactively post new information about your business. We talked about generating reviews. We talked about where you generate those reviews, Facebook or Google. We talked about understanding those reviews, reading those reviews, replying to those reviews. Understanding how your reviews compare to your customers is another piece that I don't think we talked a ton about, but that's another big part. Your reputation is one thing, but understanding how your reputation fits in the competitive landscape is another piece of it. And you're exactly right. I mean, just listing it out, this is a lot for a business owner to keep track of. This is a lot for us to talk about. It will make your head spin. But the Hibu solution out there touches on all of this, blends all of this, and really makes one cohesive solution that is creating, and I think we used this term in the beginning of this conversation, is your online foundation and your online reputation, and making sure that all of those things are taken care of and optimized, and really forming what we would call a strong foundation for your business when people are searching for your business. All of that can be taken care of through Hibu products and tools, all in one cohesive solution. So the business owner, as you said, Ian, can focus on running their business, not focus on running all the different bullet points that I just mentioned there.
Right. They don't have to sit there and think, I guess I have to hire a reputation manager now. Where's he going to sit?
Exactly. There's a lot to understand and a lot to manage there. And as I said, the Hibu solution can really do all that, really simplify all that. It sounds like a lot, but it really can be boiled down and simplified through what Hibu can do for you.
Well, Eric, thanks again for being with us here today. This was very informative. We covered a lot, and I will be leaving you a positive review. And for those of you listening outside of this small group here, please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Subscribe to the podcast if you can. And once again, this has been Small Business Small Talk, and we are out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Small Business Small Talk, powered by Hibu. Hibu is a leading provider of synchronized digital marketing for small businesses across America. With Hibu, you get all the digital marketing your business needs, all from a single provider, all working together to maximize results. Visit us today at hibu.com, Hibu, Hibu.com.